How do you deal with conflicts at work while keeping the good humor, the good mood amongst your team? So, today, that is the topic. And I want to share with you some strategies that you can use because it's not only at work, we are all dealing with conflicts, difficult conversations in several areas of our lives. So let's start with our question for today. The question is: what strategies can I use to prevent and address conflicts within my team and promote a harmonious work environment? Before we get there, I have to remind for the ones that are coming here for the first time that these conversations that I'm bringing to you here today, up to next week, next Monday, it's a compilation of some of the questions that I got through research that I've been doing since last year about how to deal with difficult conversations, and some of the questions that people sent to me asking if I could bring some light to them how to deal with them. So I will try my best. I will be answering, commenting more than answering, commenting one question per session. So this is our question today. First and foremost, I want to go back to the foundation. As a communication architect, I always go back to the foundation of the three pillars that you will have to face, to have in mind when you are dealing with any difficult conversation, any conflict. The first one, communication, and I put it here on the screen for you. Communication is key. You have, you must, you ought, you should, even if I don't like saying should, you shall work in your communication skills, because it's important that you understand what type of communicator you are to address the situations. And then you can also look for support in certain areas that you are not so good at. We all have a different kind of a different style of communicating ourselves, and we have to attune our style, calibrate our style with the situation. So this is why it's important that you understand first the kind of communicator you are to address different situations. Some people are better addressing some situations than other situations. So it's important that you assess yourself and see if you're fit to address that situation or look for support. The second point, the second pillar is active listening. We all have to keep working on our active listening capabilities and skills. I usually say that we don't go for an active listening class, do we? So this is something that we have to learn by ourselves to become more aware of our listening capabilities when we are communicating with people. And we know that nowadays, with everything, all the shiny objects around us, and besides the addiction, really, that some have with their phone, active listening became a really big challenge. And if you're not mastering your active listening skills, at least if you're not trying your best to become a better listener, you, I have to say, that most likely will always find trouble when addressing difficult conversations and conflict. And the third one is to address the conflict face, heads up. Don't deny, don't avoid, don't try to believe, or even to think that conflicts will go away if you don't look at them. They won't. The first thing you have to do before blaming anybody else, just address there is a conflict and we need to deal with it. And it's okay to say, yes, there is a problem here, and let's take the time to organize our ideas, and then we come back, we set a date to deal with them. Because this is one thing that I will rephrase this in every conversation we have here, that many times people think that to, especially if they're in the leading position, especially if they're parents and dealing with teenagers, for example, that they have to have an answer at the moment. Not necessarily, because when we are under stress, we are not thinking straight. We need to calm down. Our emotions in our body are turbulent, so we need to calm down. The important thing is address, yes, we have a problem. Let's talk about. Give yourself certain time, uh, like conscious time, not like a long time, and then you come back, you meet with the people to address the topic. So the first things, remember, communication is key. Active listening, because you need to learn how to listen all the parts in the democratic way, is not only your way or the highway, and address the conflicts properly. So what are the strategies we can have to address, first I would like to say, to prevent conflicts to happen in the first place, because some conflicts are preventable, but we just, because we are not addressing the small situations, the side talks, or those gut feelings that we have, and that's the most common, that we have a gut feeling that something's not going well, especially in intimate relationships, with friends, because the closer the relationship we have, more challenging is to deal when there's conflict, because the emotions go woo. It's very difficult to be pragmatic. So when we have the feeling that something is not going in the right track, what can we do? There are plenty of conflict resolution techniques that you can look for out there, and where I will not address them one by one here. But it's important here, I point this here for you, because we don't need to know everything. Well, in fact, we don't know everything. This is why we need this time to go to find a resource, to equip ourselves with the resources to deal with the difficult conversations or conflict. So go do your research, not only as accessing the facts of the situation, but also collecting resources and tools and tactics that will help you to address the situation. The next one would be set clear expectations and boundaries. Why? Because, and this happens, for example, in meetings. I ask my clients several times, do you have an agenda for your meeting? And I'm really surprised that even at senior level, sometimes have a they don't have a clear agenda of what they want to achieve with that particular meeting. And also how it's going to be the participation of each person in that meeting. So when you are dealing with conflicts, with difficult situations, you have to agree beforehand how the process will happen, because otherwise everybody will start speaking at the top of each other. You will most probably lose the control. People will lose the control, and it will be very difficult to listen to each other with actively, and also with the calibrated emotion, so when you can make decisions. So it's about setting the expectations and boundaries of behaviors in that situation. Agree beforehand. So here is how we are going to do this. This is how I suggest. I will present here my view of the situation. Everybody listens, and then everybody has opportunity to present their view, and then we will listen without interruption, and then we will discuss afterwards and brainstorm what direction we can go with that. Because what happens when there are conflicts and when there are difficult conversations, the emotions are high, and we stop listening. And I mentioned this yesterday. It is a fact when we are under stress that although all our senses become sharp, because we go back to our primal instinct of fight or fly, but somehow nature thinks that hearing is not the most important, and therefore our hearing aid is reduced. So, what happens? We are not listening. We are focused on the danger, on what the other person is saying, but because we are not listening actively, we are not really listening to the other person in the sense trying to understand where the person is coming from. What we are doing is we are listening to confirm that we are right, that I have all the rights to feel that way, that I have all the rights to be fighting against you. So these are important things that you have to have present before facing any difficult conversation. So I repeat here again, your communication, you need to find the words, calibrate your words before. Think like, I'm not going to say this way. If the person mentioned about this that I know that hits me, that makes me feel comfortable, I'm not going to respond that way. I will do my best to respond in a more positive, in a not even positive, but in a way that opens space for dialogues. Because I know, there's certain answers or remarks that they are walls. They build walls immediately, and it blocks everybody else for speaking. So that's very important that you're aware of how you use your words correctly, that they are building bridges of communications, building this space where everybody feel that they have the opportunity to say, to express their feelings in that moment. And as a leader, as a parent, leading by example is a must. People around you, they are looking up to you. So when is in conflict, if someone is starting from yourself in your position, which I believe that every big change is start from one, and especially when you are in a leading position, then you have the ripple effect to affect others to do the same. It's more about how you do things, and then what you tell them to do. And it's about leading by example. And when you are working on your own communication, you're active listening, that you build this space for people to communicate. And the more you do, of course, it as is a skill, you have to practice to improve. And the more you do it, the more you improve. And your people, your children, you see that you're making the effort to improve on those areas. They will start emulating you. They will start feeling that they do have the space to do the same. So this is a very important aspect of everything you do. People watching you. Sometimes we think we are not seen, but people are watching you, even in this environment where I'm here talking to you. Some people might be watching now, and other people might not be watching now, but they might watch later. And this is here is going to stay live, and people can come back to this here or get this randomly in front of them one day, and they will listen to me and say, oh, what is this woman saying? So people are watching you. So it's important that you build this consistency between what you say and how you behave as a leader. You have to walk your talk. And a leader, I would say, as a parent as well, and as a friend, as a person, you have to lead by example. So, in back to our situation in a conflict, in a work, for example, another strategy is to encourage team building activities. Team building activities so people can start working together, but you always need to give them guidelines. Always give people guidelines. If you are leading a conflict, if you are in the position of a conflict resolution yourself, if you're a parent, you have to give guidance to people, at least give them suggestions on how they can improve, on how they can address those situations. So um, because people, when they are in emotional distress, in a difficult conversation or in conflict, they will, of course, be in the defensive mode. And in the defensive mode, we don't reach anything. We are locked, we are blocked. And another important aspect, feedback. Sometimes a difficult conversation, has phases. It's not resolved in one session or in even more a conflict. Yeah, because the way I see here and I share with you is like, see difficult conversation at this level before becoming a conflict. Hmm? So power of feedback. Give feedback to people, feedback that are constructive. And feedback, there's an art in itself. You need to learn how to give feedback. So then you learn how to receive feedback. And I will give you some uh, parentheses here, because most people think, oh, I want to give constructive feedback, and then find ways to give constructive analysis of the situation. But the important thing here is to, once you give your constructive analysis of the situation with your feedback, you have to give some suggestions of improvement, suggestions to move to the next level. Because you can give me a feedback of something that I did not do in the best way. That's something that could have been done in a different manner. But if you don't tell me how I can move from where I am to the next level, so I can do this in a different manner that is a better way of doing it, which is also questionable, that we can even discuss about that. You have to be open for that too. So I would be, if this doesn't happen, that you give me feedback, but you allow me you give me some suggestions on how I can move to the next level, I might get stuck because that's the way I know how to do it. So this is why sometimes feedback is not so effective, because people think that, oh, I'm going to be constructive and not negative, but they tell you all the points that they felt that you could improve on this and this and that, but they're not telling you how you do it. And saying that, you might be thinking here, well, Tully, you're doing the same here. You're telling us here the points that we need to be attentive when we are dealing with conflict in difficult situations. The how, I will tell you next week. I will tell you next week in our workshop, because we don't have time here. So what I want to address here with you is some questions that are the most common questions that everybody faces on a daily basis, and then for you to be attentive of the situations and the strategies, what you have available that can help you to address those conflicts or those difficult conversations. And another one is, of course, offer your people workshops and trainings on those areas that when you understand that they are facing certain problems, that some problems are recurrent, some situations are recurrent, offer them workshops and trainings. And you might need, even depending on the situation, consider to have a mediator, because when the situation is very heated, everybody is already so attached to their way of viewing things that you need to get someone from outside that see things from a completely different perspective to be able to start breaking those barriers in this conflictive situation, in this difficult conversation. And every time you achieve something, acknowledge it. Acknowledge it, because we tend to say, okay, that's fine, that's solved. Go back to it with your team, with your children, and say, okay, we managed to solve this situation, this problem, this difficult conversation, this conflict, because we have agreed to one, two, and three. And let's keep track of that, and let's keep the space open for readjustment, because some conflicts, some difficult conversations, the reason of them come from a very, very in-depth emotional experience that we had, or biases that we have towards certain situations, that the most common is that we fall back into them again. So we always have to keep it open that sometimes conflicts, difficult conversations, we deal with them, but along the line, they come back again. So this is why it's a constant work in ourselves and with the people around us. So this is all for me today. And let's continue our conversation tomorrow, where we will find ways to deal with some difficult conversations and conflicts. This is all for me, and talk soon.